Well, we start here this afternoon. South Africa's business confidence remains resilient. That's according to the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry's Business Confidence Index, which surveys major employers and business leaders in the country. The latest reading is higher than the levels as seen in March 2020 before the COVID-19 pandemic struck and a lockdown was imposed. The BCI improved by 5.3 index points in August, and it reflects the positive effect of overseas tourism, merchandise import and export volumes had on sentiment. For more on how the private sector feels about the business prospects in the country right now, we are joined by Advocate Mthokozisi, who is the president of SACCI. Advocate Xulu, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. This particular index is quite an important one because you are testing the pulse, really, of how the business community feels at that particular point. Are you surprised by the sentiment of the private sector at all, seeing there continue to be a number of issues that one would think would dent business sentiment in the South African economy?
Good afternoon, Xolani. Thanks for having us. I think we are encouraged by actually the results. Yes, you may look at it and say, where is the confidence coming from? But I think what you must read mainly out of this BCI report is that the South African private sector is now almost taking it upon themselves to protect the South African economy. And that's the resilience that we are talking about, that we are all now confident that if we are to deepen solutions that the private sector led and build resilience to protect ourselves from the external factors, we should be able to keep the South African economy going. Because we realize that, no one is coming to save us, and some of these other external issues are international in nature. So I think what we're reading out of this is that the confidence is being driven by the fact that the resilience is strengthening amongst the private sector, and we are trying to get private sector to start solving some of the problems that we are facing as an economy.
Advocate Xulu, I want to get onto that, how the resilience and the business community is coming together a little later. But when you look at the results of the survey, still half of the 14 sub-indices that are monitored in compiling this particular index actually reflected a negative impact on the business climate between August and September. What is that all about, if it's not to do mainly with the load shedding, which has gone up, which went up tremendously in the past couple of months, particularly those 2 months?
Yes, certainly energy supply or the lack thereof is the biggest drawback in the confidence on this BCI. And obviously, it remains a big concern that SACCI has, that without stable and reliable, energy and the disappointment that we are facing with Eskom, the confidence of this country is unlikely to grow as quickly as we want it. So the Eskom problems, the load shedding, the biggest drawback in this BCI, also coupled with the increases in, the interest rate increases that are driving fuel price increases, food increases, and the cost of living, because that also puts pressure on the demand side, with coupled with unemployment. So the big drawback and the big negatives here are load shedding and the energy situation, as well as the increasing cost of living, mainly driven by the high interest rates.
Advocate Xulu, this survey is backward-looking on sentiment among the business community about how they were feeling about the economic prospects at that time. But could an industrial strike such as Transnet represent, which is actually representing a crucial situation, put a dent on those sentiments for the survey for the month of October, for example?
Yes, we are almost looking at, exports being impacted, even vehicle sales being impacted, and a number of other trades that depends on the reliable logistics. So we are focusing that in the next BCI, we're going to have the Transnet situation coming in and probably putting a damper to the confidence. And the problem with the next month, Xolani, is that you're still going to have the Eskom problem. So we're actually looking at a situation where the BCI is going to look into the impact of these two state-owned enterprises affecting the economy. One logistics, one energy, and I think there's going to be a big pressure on confidence. But yes, I think we should anticipate a lower confidence level if the strike continues at Transnet, coupled with the continued load shedding from Eskom.
I want to go back to your first comment with regards to how the business community is coming together to solve its own problems. And we've already seen it when it comes to the Transnet strike, businesses offering to pay more in order to help a state-owned entity that is really struggling to come up with a suitable offer to workers in an attempt to end the strike. This is a blot or an indictment on the state, on government itself, that they simply can't be expected to do things, and the business community is coming together in order to solve their own problems where the state should be actually playing a huge part.
Yeah, I think it's just an unfortunate reminder that had the private sector been listened to earlier and be allowed to participate in rail networks in the country to assist, the security thereof and the better management of rail, we may have found a situation where we are moving more goods, unlike relying on Transnet with its own limitations. I mean, you know that the Transnet is performing, just on commodity exports, we are around 50% of capacity. And all that puts pressure on the business. And when wage negotiations come around, the business is struggling and is unable to meet basic demands of their own workers. But if we can have a sustainable private sector participation, we hope that, we believe that the situation could have been avoided, because we probably would have had a Transnet that is more functional for decentralized teams where different private sectors can be held accountable on the performance of the different corridors. So we don't want to sound like we say we told you so, but I think these kinds of episodes really remind you that if you can bring the private sector in, you can actually avoid the congestions on the road and have accountable and private sector-led solutions for the different rail corridors, and in the process be able to have benefits and better pay for the workers that are involved in those corridors.
When you look at what happened yesterday, the IMF warned in its economic outlook that the global economy is in a tough place in the coming months. In their words, they said the worst is yet to come. Whether looking at higher interest rates, inflation, and the global supply challenges, this suggests that we should be very afraid. You did review, and you do review, the economy for that month in terms of how it actually performed. What does it say about economic performance in that review?
Well, economic performance remains flat. I think the confidence, obviously, it's just a sentiment of the economy, but performance itself remains flat because we are obviously exposed to the global markets. Our exports need to be absorbed globally, and in some cases, obviously, we have not been able to export them because of certain challenges. We are also facing the different, or we have the impact of the global inflation, and we're also feeling it, in the pockets of various consumers that our businesses interact with. So that also remains flat and remains very tight, and hence we say in our index that increased cost of living is putting a pressure both on the consumer and the businesses themselves. So we are feeling it. The performance is fairly flat. The confidence may be higher, but the confidence doesn't always represent the performance. And I think the performance is frustrated by the fact that logistics don't work properly, and obviously the energy crisis puts a pressure on actual operations, whether for manufacturing or for services. So I think we are also in the global phenomena, the pressures on the international trade, and we could have maybe resolved some of them with our own, making sure that our domestic situation improves. But performance remains flat, even though confidence is fairly higher.
One more thing that is quite important that is said in this particular index is that the fixed investment that is needed by both the private and the public sector is not at a level necessary to inspire and drive economic growth. Where are we falling short? I think
it's our assessment. Look, you can have a long discussion about that situation, because there's different analysis and the infrastructure office in the presidency is leading the conversation in that regard. But I think our starting point is that we really need to fix the regime that governs public-private partnerships, because across all the infrastructure classes, it's really difficult in this country to get a public-private partnership to really work. And that framework that the National Treasury has not really produced a lot of the triple P projects since the days of how trade, for instance. And from the energy point of view, the renewable projects have really given us some hope that this model can work. But I think the most sustainable thing that we need to do, we need to review and update the triple P framework in such a way that we can quickly and boldly allow the private sector to participate in sectors that we previously were controlled by the state, but in a way that obviously private sector participation for public good. So I think the starting point is that we need to overhaul the public-private partnership framework and to allow for quicker and more investment into public infrastructure.
Advocate Mthokozisi is the president of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, weighing in on what has been an important one when it comes to the business confidence index, which remained resilient in the months August and September. Thank you very much for your time.